how exactly do you stop a government from turning into a dictatorship? Or, treating public funds like a personal piggy bank? Well, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to build a clear, totally unforgettable mental map of the ultimate safeguard. We're looking at the three guardians, Article 9 of the 1987 Philippine Constitution. Because let's face it, good intentions, they just aren't enough to stop corruption or tyranny. You need an ironclad constitutional solution. And that is exactly what Article 9 was designed to be. It's essentially a system of independent watchdogs built to keep the government in check, especially when nobody else is looking. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our mental map for today. We're going to cover 1. The guardians, 2. The common rules, 3. The CSC and who works, 4. COMELEC and who wins, 5. COA and what is spent, and finally, number 6, the ultimate check. So, Section 1, the guardians, the 3 W's of the state. To really lock this into your memory right from the start, we need a super simple framework to understand exactly what these 3 commissions actually do before we get bogged down in any legal jargon. All right, here is your first memory trick, the 3 W's. First, the Civil Service Commission, or CSC. They determine who works in government. Second, the Commission on Elections, the COMELEC. They determine who wins the power to lead. And third, the Commission on Audit, or COA. They determine what is spent and exactly how it's spent. By slicing up these massive powers, human resources, democratic elections, and the national treasure, into 3 completely separate, independent bodies, the Constitution basically guarantees that no single politician can ever control the entire state apparatus. It's brilliant, really. But think about it. If these commissions are supposed to police the most powerful people in the country, who protects the commissions? Well, let's look at Section 2, Common Rules, Guardians of Independence. Now, I want you to lock this acronym into your mental map. The 7-No-R rule. Every single commissioner across all 3 of these bodies is appointed for a strict 7-year term, and there is absolutely no reappointment. None. 0. Why does this actually matter? Well, if you want to be reappointed, right, you might start doing political favors for the president or the lawmakers who hold the keys to your job. By totally removing reappointment from the table, these commissioners owe absolutely nothing to anyone. Plus, the Constitution strictly forbids any member from being appointed in a temporary or acting capacity. Basically, you're either officially in or you aren't. No in between. What's really interesting about this next safeguard is how it stops financial blackmail. It's called fiscal autonomy. Imagine a corrupt politician trying to silence a watchdog. If they can't fire the commissioner because of that 7-0-R rule we just talked about, what's their next move? Obviously, they cut the agency's budget. But Article 9 completely prevents this by guaranteeing that their approved annual funds must be automatically and regularly released. The government literally cannot starve these commissions of funds to control them. Oh, and their salaries? Fixed by law. They cannot be decreased during their tenure. And when these commissions make a ruling, they wield immense authority. Let's say you disagree with a decision from the CSC, COMELEC, or COA. You don't just go whining to a local trial court. The rules state that any decision, order, or ruling can be brought straight to the Supreme Court on certiorari by the aggrieved party within 30 days. Certiorari is just a fancy legal term, but it basically means they bypass the lower courts entirely. It goes straight to the top. Okay, let's open up the very first specific branch of our mind map, Section 3, CSC, who works. The CSC is a pretty tight ship. It's composed of just 3 people, 1 chairman and 2 commissioners. And to even be considered for the job, you have to be a natural-born citizen, at least 35 years old, and have a proven capacity for public administration. Oh, and here's a catch. You absolutely cannot have been a candidate for any elective position in the elections immediately prior to your appointment. See, the CSC is the central personnel agency of the government. Its absolute supreme mandate is to ensure that appointments are based on merit and fitness, which, whenever practically possible, is determined by a competitive examination. Why go through all that trouble? To stop the government workforce from turning into someone's private political army. The Constitution is incredibly strict about this. It states that no officer or employee in the civil service shall engage, directly or indirectly, in any electioneering or partisan political campaign. You serve the people, right? Not a politician's re-election bid. Let's move to and see how this builds into our next branch. Section 4, COMELEC, who wins? This right here is the ultimate referee of Philippine democracy. Now, visually contrast this with the CSC we just looked at. While the CSC operates with just 3 members, COMELEC requires a much larger team of 7. That's 1 chairman and 6 commissioners. And it makes sense, right? Running elections across an entire archipelago of over 7,000 islands is a massive, massive logistical and legal undertaking. So the crucial point here is the strict legal requirement for this specific commission. While they definitely have to be at least 35 years old and hold a college degree, the Constitution mandates that a majority of them, including the chairman, must be lawyers who have been practicing for at least 10 years. Because think about it, they aren't just counting ballots. They're interpreting incredibly complex electoral laws, judging candidate qualifications, and settling really high-stakes political disputes. Their powers are absolutely extraordinary. They enforce all election laws, and they hold exclusive original jurisdiction over contests relating to regional, provincial, and city officials. But their real superpower? During elections, they can actually deputize law enforcement agencies, including the armed forces of the Philippines, to ensure free, orderly, honest, peaceful, and credible elections. Now, note that the specific deputization does require the concurrence of the president. They also hold the power to register political parties, firmly rejecting any groups that use violence or happen to be supported by foreign governments. To ensure total fair play, COMELEC's supervisory powers basically peak during a very specific window called the election period. Unless it's fixed otherwise for special cases, this timeline begins 90 days before Election Day and ends 30 days after. During these 120 days, COMELEC can supervise and regulate franchises, transportation, media, even public utilities. It's all to guarantee that every single candidate gets an equal opportunity, equal time, and equal space for their campaigns. Okay, so we've covered the workers and the winners. Let's open the third and final branch of our map. Section 5, COA, what is spent, the ultimate financial watchdog. And just like the structure of the CSC we looked at earlier, we are right back to the number 3. The Commission on Audit is led by 1 chairman and 2 commissioners. And this brilliantly illustrates a truly unique constitutional safeguard. To sit on the COA, you must be either a certified public accountant with 10 years of auditing experience or a lawyer with 10 years of practice. But here is the kicker. The rule explicitly states that at no time shall all members of the commission belong to the same profession. It basically forces a balance of perspectives. You have the accountants following the actual numbers and the lawyers making sure the expenditure is entirely legal. The jurisdiction of the COA is pretty much absolute. They have the power, authority, and duty to examine, audit, and settle all accounts pertaining to government revenues, receipts, and expenditures. And to make sure no clever politician can somehow hide their spending, Article 9 contains an unbending rule. Absolutely no law shall be passed exempting any entity of the government or any investment of public funds from the jurisdiction of the Commission on Audit. They are, without a doubt, the supreme auditors. As we finally complete our mental map, let's transition to what this all actually means for the everyday citizen. Section 6, the ultimate check and balance. Look at this single line from the Civil Service section of Article 9. It really represents the core philosophy of this entire framework. Whether it's the CSC protecting jobs from political patronage, COMELEC protecting the sanctity of your vote, or COA protecting the treasury from plunder, their ultimate loyalty, and frankly, the loyalty of every single government employee, is to the Constitution itself. It's not to a president, it's not to a political party, but to the constitutional rule of law. We've outlined the 3 W's, right? Who works, who wins, and what is spent. We've seen the 7 OR rules that keep them completely independent. But here's the thing. The system isn't self-sustaining. These constitutional watchdogs, they only function effectively if the public actually understands their powers, respects their independence, and, most importantly, pays attention when they issue their rulings. So, I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought. If these 3 guardians protect the state from abuse, what is your role in protecting them? Thank you so much for exploring this mental map with me in this explainer, and definitely keep questioning how your government works.